Welcome to Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings, with me, Gretta Chamberlain, Yvonne, Leigh, and the Realm of Beings. Shifting Impressions, which is one of the vehicles that supports the transmission of the Realm of Beings, is here to assist you in delving into your being by providing numerous topics and discussions for you to intake as you deepen your connection with your inner world. Shifting Impressions is here to assist you in strengthening yourself as you excavate to understand your true nature. Leigh, Yvonne, and myself, with the Realm of Beings, eagerly invite you to join us today and learn to shift your mindset, shift your thoughts, and shift your focus to recreate your life and produce a new you. Shifting Impressions starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings. I'm Leigh, and I'm here with my co-hostesses, Gretta and Yvonne, and always the Realm of Beings. We're so happy to be on Transformation Talk Radio every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. When you hear that term, Realm of Beings, you ask yourself maybe, who are they? What is that? How do they operate in our lives? Why are they coming through with these messages now? Do we all receive guidance? And if so, how can we learn to use it in order to flow through our lives with ease? These conversations will help you examine your life and your creation of reality. They will help you to shift your impressions and understand what you are creating in your life and how it shows up. So thanks for joining us this week. This is kind of a part 2 of the podcast we did last week on helping us understand what is the unconscious, how does it operate in our lives. We like to shift impressions. So, this is a conversation that sort of could not be tackled in just 1 hour. So today we will dive a little deeper in our understanding of what the unconscious is. So we're working with the quote again this week: you can know where your unconscious is by the realities you create and the people who surround you and interact with you. So let's get started, shifting impressions. Gretta, actually, I believe in the previous podcast, we needed to give the listeners some references about what you were talking about, mental equivalencies. And there are definitely 2 books. One is a beginner's guide, and that was You Can Heal Your Life. The author is Louise Hay. And then for students that are a little more advanced, there's the Encyclopedia of Ailments and Diseases by Jacques Martel, and that is much more in-depth than the Louise Hay book. So if you want more information about these mental equivalencies, definitely go there. So Gretta, thank you. And where do you want to start today with talking about the unconscious? Yvonne, where would you like us to pick up this week?
I think that I just want to tag on to what you just said about the mental equivalencies, because how you use that, for those of you who are not familiar with that term or familiar with what those are, that's showing you, your body is showing you where your unconscious is. So perhaps, like, let's say if you have a headache, then you would go to Louise Hay or you would go to Jacques Martel's books and you look up the word headache, and then you can read what headache is. If you're in the Louise Hay book, she'll give you just maybe a quick sentence. So it's like a quick look. If you want more information about it, then you would go to Jacques Martel, because sometimes his explanations, instead of being one sentence, can be 2-3 pages long on the challenge that you are having. So it's like your teeth. In Louise Hay, teeth will have one explanation for it if you're having trouble with your teeth. If you're having, you can, in Martel, you can look up the specific tooth, and each tooth has a different meaning. And so each tooth is showing you where your unconscious is. Because in psychology, at one point, I know there's one book called The Unconscious. I can't remember who the author is, but in the beginning, it was said, well, you'd never know where your unconscious is, but you can always know, because it's like it said in the definition, you, who do you interact with? Who are you calling to yourself? What experiences are you calling to yourself? What illnesses, and et cetera, and et cetera. So that lets you know what's going on with the unconscious. And I want you to know that mental equivalencies also started back in 1948. So it didn't begin with Louise Hay or Jacques Martel. And I also want to let you know that there are other people that have books out that deal with it, that you can look at as well. Those just happen to be the ones that we primarily use, but there are many others. And you can go online and find workshops dealing with mental equivalencies too. So I just wanted to add that to that, Leigh.
That sounds fascinating. As we're sitting here, I'm just kind of something comes up for me. Like once you say, for example, you brought it up earlier, Greta, about a cough. So maybe we could go with that example. So like when you have a cough, you're expressing yourself. Like once people like get an idea, maybe by using these tools, like what's happening, like what do these books possibly want to advise me or help me learn or understand about myself? What do people do with it from your experience and your perspective, Greta? Do they pay attention to that information? And what do you do with it is more of an maybe a better way of asking the question. So like, say, for example, you have a cough, and you went to the book and you said, oh, what does that mean? And then what happens next? I guess I'm trying to figure out.
Well, when I was in the experience, and to let the audience know what happened, we had a pre-recording of the of next Friday's Shifting Impressions. So the realm started speaking. They were on a roll, they were talking, and all of a sudden the Greta part of me started coughing. And it was almost, I don't know how long it lasted. And then there was silence. And I think I heard Leigh ask, well, is anything wrong or whatever? And I do remember the realm saying, Greta's coughing. And then they stopped and waited. And then we went on with the podcast. But after the podcast was over, I said to myself, why in the heck did I start coughing? I wait till I get on the podcast to start coughing. So then I had to look at what does coughing represent, because anything that happens to me personally, I always take it as a message to myself. So then I had to think about what is the mental equivalency? What does coughing represent? And coughing, one idea of it is that when you cough, you want whatever you're saying to somebody or whatever is being spoken, you want that person or persons to really listen, but not even just listen, but to understand what you are saying. So at one level, the realm of beings is talking and they're going on, but apparently they said something that my unconscious really wanted the audience to get. So my reaction to them wanting to really get that was I started coughing. I don't know if they took it out, but anyway, that's what happened to me. So I didn't cough consciously. I started coughing, unconsciously created that because of the desire for people to understand what our podcast is about, what the realm is saying, and to really take it to heart what's being said. So that was a creation of reality on my part, and it was personal to me. So that's why I had to examine that. So to answer your question, Yvonne, I recognize that I have a mental equivalency, and I go and figure out what it is. When I figure out what that is, then the third step is going to be for me to figure out, why did I do that? Why did I create that? Why did that happen to me?
Yeah. Could you go one step further and say that perhaps like you could use the other tool of displace, replace, so you didn't need to cough anymore? Or how does that fit in with the coughing scenario? Like, and so people can actually wrap their head around it a little bit more. Our listeners can understand what we're, some of these points we're trying to make in the podcast.
Well, see, that's an interesting question, because, it's important to understand that at that time, I was channeling the voices, the thoughts of the realm of beings by way of my voice. Mm-hmm. So I was not in dealing with the Gretta part of me doing a displace, replace.
Okay.
Because my whole focus was on them. So I would have had to cancel them and then move forward with displace, replace with them. But that would have been quite challenging for me, I think. Notice that, and let me correct that. Let me get rid of quite challenging, because I don't want to quite challenge anything. I want to move in ease through everything in my life. So let me get that word challenge out of there. But for people, if they recognize that they're into something, that's the first thing, is to recognize you're in it. Most people don't recognize they're in it. Like allergies. Mental equivalency for an allergy, one of the mental equivalencies for it is that you are allergic to someone. So who around you are you allergic to? That's just one part of it, looking at it. You see, it's like someone who is created for whatever reason to have cancer. Cancer is a dis-ease that represents a mental equivalency of wanting to hold on to old hurts. So you start to stockpile the old hurts that you're going through. And therefore there's a communication that says, okay, you're stockpiling the hurts, let's let you know. Now the thing is that you've created the cancer, but then where have you created the cancer? Because where you've created the cancer also gives you information. Like if it's in the breast, breast is a representation of nurturance. Cancer is holding on to little hurts. So perhaps as a child and going into your adulthood, you decided that you were not being nurtured by the people that you created or attracted to yourself. So, but then you look at, is it in the left breast? Because men and women can have breast cancer. So is it in the left breast, or if it's in the right breast? If we're in Western culture framework, then the little hurts are going to be centered around the mother, because that's your beginning of nurturance. So, and it extends from there, you stockpile the hurts. If it's on the right side, then The nurturance perhaps was not coming from your father. You see that it depends on the individual. So I'm doing generalizations right now about that. So where it is also tells you something. Now, if you're in Asian culture, it's going to be the reverse. The right side is going to be female. The left side is going to be male for this instance. Yeah. So I don't know, did that answer the question, Yvonne, for you?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead.
Maybe we've kind of strayed a little bit, but the quote that we're kind of focusing on is, you can know where your unconscious is by the realities you create and the people who surround you and interact with you. So I guess that's kind of saying that you act as a magnet for these experiences and the people that you interact with to learn something, right?
Right. Now, I don't think we strayed, because all of that is creation of reality, and it's all based on where your unconscious is. Right. Where you're, because the unconscious holds everything. It remembers everything. So each dis-ease is coming out of some way of what the unconscious is holding on for us. And it's part of our how. How do we want to learn our lessons? How? That's the biggie. How do we want to do that? So Leigh, I feel your brain waves coming over here to me from Turkey. So what are you getting ready to say?
Well, there were a couple of things. However, I think we're headed into our break soon, but I will pose the question anyway, and it can get answered when we come back. On part one of this Unconsciousness podcast, we were talking about, I think Yvonne brought up how the unconscious can perhaps communicate with us through dreams. Is that, and if we can look at the dreams and maybe understand what symbolically they represent, is that a way that the unconscious tries to communicate with us?
First of all, dreams are other realities. And the unconscious is in communication with you all the time. You just think it isn't, but it is. So it's always assisting you in creating realities that you want to explore in reference to your beingness. So a dream is just another reality. Like going into a coma. Some people are placed into comas. That's just another reality. So some people also do remote viewing. So they go into other realities. Yeah.
Well, that also requires a deeper dive. And maybe we can do that after the break. However, I also wanted to know, when I think when I was writing that question in the notes, I started to write, how does my unconscious communicate with me? And I think that is something we want to discuss in the next segment, which is it really my unconscious, or is it something else? So we will be right back, and stay tuned, keep listening, and we will take a short break and be right back. Thank you for listening to Shifting Impressions.
Welcome back. You're listening to Shifting Impressions, and we're on Transformation Talk Radio, along with Gretta, Leigh, and the Realm of Beings. And we're here every Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And today we are in a lively and very, very deep discussion about the differences between the unconscious and the conscious. And Leigh, before our break, posed some questions about dreams, and which brought up the idea of, is the unconscious unique to each one of us, or would the unconscious be a shared reality? So yeah, something else to go a little deeper on the fact that and explore that there really is only one unconscious in everything, and it is the force. And I believe it's really just an illusion that each one of us has our own unconscious, which leads to division and separation. And I think that what brings us together is that idea of unity, that we're all sharing part of the same unconscious. So anything to further deepen this discussion, Leigh, Gretta?
Well, I think one of the things that has to come out of what you've said, Yvonne, is that the unconscious is the force itself. It's just another word for it, but it is the force. And to remind everybody, the force is the energy essence that created everything into infinity. That anything and everything that has been created, regardless if we're experiencing it or not, other people are experiencing it, other individuals are experiencing it, it's because the unconscious is the force. So that brings us into the concept of the oneness. But the other part about that is, like you said, Yvonne, that that there's only one unconscious. We think, because we see ourselves separate, like the audience that's looking at us right now sees three different individuals. If we move past that illusion that we are three different individuals, we will only see oneness. That means what we've been saying is that if we get rid of all of our corporal bodies, all the way down, we strip ourselves of all the corporal bodies, and we look at each one of us, we will see no difference because we are the energy essence, which is the force. So consequently, it makes us the force. Now, how do we know that from a physical perspective that we are all sharing the same unconscious? That comes into thinking of collective consciousness, where a group of people band together to have the same experience. That's a good example of it, like that. They're banding together. So they're sharing. That unconscious is the same. We're all the same. So it's very easy for us to band together to propel something forward, regardless of what it is, or to have the same experience. Like on the news yesterday, which is something I don't look at too much, but I saw that there was a whole accident of people that had been hurt. And that meant that they collectively, the unconscious as a collective, they shared that, so they had that experience as well. So the unconscious plays a very important role in the realities that we create, either the realities that we create by ourselves or the realities that we create with others. So That's one way of knowing. Another way of knowing is that there could be somebody in France working on a project, let's say a research study, and they come up with something. But then there's a person all the way in South America that's doing the research and coming up with something. So they're creating the same realities, you see, but one's in France and one's in South America. But they're creating, how does that happen? That happens because we're all sharing the same unconscious, which is the force, which makes us the force. Now that we can spend another whole 2 or 3 podcasts on, how do we get to be the force? But the bottom line is that that's what's happening. So it's that oneness, the oneness that we experience. That's how we know. Remember, we said that earlier in the podcast today, I think we said in the quote, it says that you'll know where your unconscious is because of who you call to yourself and who you are interacting with and what you're creating around you. So sometimes we can be sharing the same thing. Like, for instance, I love going to the circus. So when I go to the circus, and I've gone to different types of circuses, but I'm in there with a group of other people. We got our children. We're all sitting there looking at the elephants. We're all laughing at the clowns. We're enjoying that whole experience. That's a collective consciousness right there. Mm-hmm. We've decided that, and we didn't know each other. The only people we know are the people that we came with. But the other hundreds of people that are in the amphitheater, we don't know them, but we're there in the circus and we're all laughing when the clown does something. The children are laughing, everybody's laughing. Collective consciousness based on our unconsciousness. We all sharing the same unconscious.
So
all the time.
Let's take a step back for one second on that one.
All right.
So, because again, this is a shift in perspective. So it would, I think the thinking would generally be that, oh, Greta, come on. You're saying that me and all of these other circus people created this together. No, it was called there was someone made a circus in town and I went to buy a ticket and those 300 other people bought tickets too, and we just showed up at the same place. How did we all create this together?
Because we didn't just show up in the same place. We all specifically chose December 3rd, we're going to the circus. So right. the tickets were there. My family chose December 3rd. Your family chose December 3rd. Everybody chose December 3rd. Isn't that interesting? I know the tickets are there, but see, everything is by way of creation of reality. Everything. So collectively, that family A bought the tickets for the circus for father, mother, whoever bought the tickets. And I bought the tickets too to see the circus. So we're moving together in that. We're moving together in that.
And you all collectively created the circus reality to experience together?
Yes, we did. I use the circus because I love circuses. That's one reason.
Well, right. You could use any kind of concert, any kind of gathering, any sort of sports event. That is a big paradigm shift, I think.
You could even take a tragedy.
True.
A tragedy where there are, look at the Trail of Tears in Native American history, historical trauma. collective to experience that. It just didn't pop up out anywhere. There was a collective experience. There was a collective experience in slavery. There was a collective experience when the Chinese were brought here to build the railroad that goes from one end of this country to the other, and then they were slaughtered when it was over. That is, we could judge it as being a tragedy. The unconscious, however, does not see good or evil. It only sees the isness of something. So for us, as being humanoids, thinking about something like that, or like in Florida, when that whole building came down, that apartment building came down, some people, quite a few people had made the decision that to create the reality to be in there when it happened, and to make their transition from that we look at that and we say, that is a tragedy. That is a tragedy. But however, we have to look at that there was a collective consciousness with it based on where the unconscious. So somebody on the 19th floor and somebody on the 5th floor, they're in different floors, they're having different experiences, but that particular experience, there was a decision that they were collectively to experience it. So you can collectively experience things that we would say are heinous, or we can collectively have experiences of joy. Look at the football games. You know, I've been looking at football like crazy, and I'm looking at all those people screaming and hollering for their teams. They're enjoying themselves. So there's there can be collective tragedy, there can be collective joy and happiness as well. We decide what we want to experience at that time that we want to experience it. Does that kind of answer it, Leigh?
Yes, it does answer it. And I do believe, it is a shift for sure. And that's what we're here for, shifting impressions.
So you're going through a shift with that one, huh?
Absolutely.
I
What's coming up for me is like those examples bring up just because, you know, politics are so kind of in the forefront for some or the background for some, but they're always there. But, you know, in the US tends to be more people do collectively create, you know, to experience whatever it is on one side or the other side. So then we're not only creating a collective shared oneness of, you know, like a certain political persuasion, but also division at the same time. So it's creating both, you know, which it seems like, you know, like a lot to handle. Like, okay, so we're creating to be part of this group, and yes, part of the division too. So, yeah.
But you know, it's like the unconscious doesn't recognize it the way we recognize it. Like I said, the unconscious does not judge. It only sees the isness of something. And because the unconscious is the force is exploring itself.
Okay. That's a good way to understand this deep divisions in politics, right? That's exploration of itself.
Right, because it's an experience. It evolves through. The term that we use is experiential evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is our purpose of going through these experiences? It's for our experiential evolution. We are evoluting. And why are we evoluting? Because the force is evoluting.
Growing,
so one with the force. You know, as it evolutes, we evolute. But note that we're evoluting with everything else that's evoluting. You're evoluting with individuals that you don't even see consciously. There are other species. There's so many species out here. There's so many species. Like I have people experience what they call ghosts, you know, or they see things moving by, you know. It's like some people tell me, they said, well, I must have something in my house. I said, really? Why do you think so? Because I see this fleeting, I know that there's something there, but when I turn my head to look, it's gone, you know. And I said, oh, shadow people. Shadow people. Right. Yes. Because
the fairies, yeah.
Yeah, but see, we think that they don't exist because we can't physically see them.
Yeah.
But see, some people do physically see them. Right. So, and they know that they're here. But a lot of times if you talk about it and tell people, well, I can see these things, then the first thing they want to say is that you're hallucinating and you're
crazy.
Yeah, so, you're schizophrenic.
I would love to explore this topic even further. We do have a limitation on our time with our podcast, and in order to make space and make physical time for the realm to come through, I think it's time if we take a short break. And is that okay with both of you, Greta, Leigh? And sure. We take a pause, and then we'll come back and we'll see what the realm has to say about this topic of consciousness and unconsciousness.
Hello, and welcome back to Shifting Impressions. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Leigh, and I'm here with Yvonne, and Greta has temporarily gone backstage. We've reached the part of the podcast where we're speaking directly with the realm of beings. So, realm, are you with us?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So today we've been continuing our conversation that we started last week about consciousness and unconsciousness. And we were letting the listeners know, shifting impressions, that there's only one unconscious. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I think you were talking about what is you call the force.
Yes.
And you see there's only one force. But see, we want to clarify between God, as you call it, God, or Allah, and the force. The force created that which you call God or Allah. So the force is the ultimate existence. And we are all, including us, one with it. There's no separation between us and you. Right now, we don't have bodies. So we are using Greta's physical vehicle in order to talk with you. Physically talk with you. But yet, even though we don't have bodies, we are still the force. The force does not look to see what body you have. It gave you created it because you are the force itself. You created and chose what experience you wanted to have. So you chose to be human.
to hold a human physical body. And you're creating that physical body all the time with the cells. See, you don't understand that the cells inside of you, each is a species just like you are. You are a species. Humanoids are a species in totality because you're composed of all these other bodies that you don't even see, you don't even know about, that are keeping this physical subtle body running. And it's running out of gas from your emotions, thoughts from your mental body, from the unconscious, because all of your essences are connected to the unconscious, which is the force. There's only one force, so there's only one unconscious. Only one.
I have a question. What do you mean by running out of gas?
Running out of gas. I don't remember saying that. Give me the context, please.
You were talking about the physical body running out of gas because of your thoughts and your emotions.
Oh my goodness. See, what I was trying to get you to understand is that your emotions are the gas. Your emotions are what gives push to the creation of your realities. Gives a push. Gretta always uses this example of a car. If you don't put gas in the car, it can't go anywhere. Unless you pick it up and carry it. Or unless you put it on one of those tow trucks and get it going. Otherwise, or push it, but it's not going to run the way you want it to run. So it needs gas. So when you're thinking of a thought, you put your emotion to the thought. The more emotion you put, now the emotion is the gas. The more emotion and emotion and emotion and emotion you put into something, then you create it physically so that you can experience it. Anything you experience, personally experience, you have created it. Without
so you're
a doubt.
creating a healthy body or a diseased body by the gas or the emotions behind whatever it is.
Well, the unconscious, because it holds everything. It holds everything of everything. How about that? It holds everything of everything.
So in this kind of metaphysical world, sometimes people talk about this thing called the Akashic record. Are they referring to the unconscious? Because if everything that ever was there, if you can access that, they gave it the name, the Akashic record, or what is that?
Let me ask you this question. The Akashic record does what?
Apparently, from what I understand, it is something that you can access, which will, well, I suppose these people are believing in past, which is not part of this program because everything is happening in the now. But this Akashic record supposedly has the knowledge of everything that ever was. But I understand that that is not really applicable here.
Let me ask you this. If it holds everything, can it access the records of a Pleiadian?
I would have a tendency to say yes.
But then the Akashic record comes with the premise that there's a past life.
Exactly. And that's, you know, sometimes as I'm going on and I'm learning in the teachings, that is sort of, that is something that definitely works with, you know, past. So you can access quote unquote past lives. And I understand that is not part of what we're doing here. It just popped into my head to ask the question for some kind of clarity, I guess.
Everything is in existence at all times.
Right.
Everything is in existence at all times. Now, what that means is that when you were in your mother's womb is still in existence. It's in the now. It's not a past situation. There is no past. There is no future in the force. There's only the isness and the presence of it. And it can be accessed at any moment. The Akashic records have been specifically set up for humanoid exploration of past lives. Let me look back and see what lessons I have learned. Who am I connected to? That's what it does, supposedly. But what it's really doing is it's holding humanoid experiences, physical humanoid experiences, the humanoid species experiences in your physical bodies, in what is called now lateralities. It's not a past. It's touching on to something that is in existence right now. Right now. If you fell down when you were 5 years old and skinned your knee, we can see you at 5 years old skinning your knee because it is now. Now. Someone was going to ask a question.
Yvonne, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of report on my understanding of the Akasha is a recording of everything in existence. Maybe not necessarily the past lives, that's part of it, but it's every thought. So
who created that?
We as humans probably labeled that idea, just put a label on it.
There you go. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
That is a creation of reality. The reality was created to give some type of understanding of what existence is.
Right, right.
That was created to do that. It's like time. Time is an illusion.
Yeah, helps people understand.
Humanoids created this time, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second. That does not exist outside of this space that you're in. If you go to another planet, if you interact with other beings, that is non-existent. So there are things that have been created by humanoids to satisfy humanoids attempting to understand existence. which is way beyond, because they can't see that there is no separation.
Mhm. Wow.
So you can understand now that if you cannot understand that there is no separation, then that means all these other little things that have been created are just for you to be able to try and understand what this is about. But one of the main things to understand versus trying to say, am I experiencing a past life? There are two things that need to be expressed to you. And that is, one, to love self. When loving self, you're honoring your beingness. You're honoring the fact that you are the force. And then to realize there is no separation.
Thank you, Force, for all of your insights. We have reached the end of another podcast. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Gretta. Thank you, the realm of beings. And until we create each other again, you've been listening to Shifting Impressions. Thank you.
Once again, thanks for joining us at Shifting Impressions, Conversations with the Realm of Beings on TransformationTalkRadio.com. As you have explored today's creation of reality experience with Leigh, Yvonne, the realm, and me, Gretta, each of you is being supported by us in further developing the understanding that you are not just an individual existing in linear time and space, but a multidimensional force of infinite possibilities who is connected to all. So begin to create the realities you want. Join us every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time and 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Shifting Impressions at TransformationTalkRadio.com. So long until we create each other again next Friday.